So, let me tell you, I never thought I'd be one of those people, the ones who end up sharing their messed up story online for strangers to read. But here I am, 25, freshly single, and trying to wrap my head around what just happened. My friends don't really get it, and honestly, I think I'm too embarrassed to tell my family, so Reddit, it's your turn to listen. Her name's Mia. We'd been together for about 3 years. I thought she was it, the real deal. We met through friends, and she had this kind of confidence I'd always admired in other people, but never really felt myself. Anyway, things started out solid. We did all the usual couple stuff: movies, late night drives, weekends away when we could afford it, and she got along with my friends too, which was a bonus. She wasn't perfect, but who is? I figured we were solid enough to handle whatever. A few months back, she started working this new job at some swanky tech company. I was genuinely happy for her. It seemed like a big step up from her old gig at a little marketing agency. The pay was better, hours were longer, but it sounded like it was where she wanted to be. Or at least that's what she said. I didn't think much of it when she started working late. I mean, she was in a new place with new responsibilities, and I didn't want to be the guy nagging her about spending time with me. I was trying to be supportive, trying being the key word here. Then little things started to change. She wasn't on her phone as much when we were together, which at first I thought was a good thing, like she was being present, you know? But then I'd see her notifications blowing up every few minutes and she'd just ignore them. Or if she did check her phone, she'd act all nonchalant, like she was hiding something. I tried brushing it off, convincing myself I was overthinking, but a part of me was uneasy. There were nights she'd cancel plans last minute, saying she was too tired or had to get up early for a work thing. One night we were watching a movie and her phone lit up with a message. It was just sitting there on the coffee table, and my eyes happened to catch the name. It was saved as Sam W. She picked up her phone faster than I'd ever seen, acting like she was just checking a notification. I tried to play it cool, but curiosity got the best of me. I asked, "Who's Sam W?" "Oh, he's just a guy from work," she said, waving it off like it was nothing. "He's on my team." "Cool," I said, trying to let it go. But that nagging feeling kept getting louder, telling me something was off. Fast forward a week, and I was starting to feel like some kind of detective in my own relationship. I noticed that whenever she'd talk about her day, she'd sometimes slip up and mention we or us instead of just me when talking about after work stuff. I'd ask her who she meant by we, and she'd casually mention Sam and some other coworkers, like they were just a group hanging out after work. I wanted to believe her. I really did. Then came the night I'll never forget. We'd made plans to have a quiet night in, but around 6, she called and said something came up at work and she'd be home late. I tried not to sound disappointed and said it was fine. But instead of heading home, I decided to go grab a drink with my buddy, Jake. We went to a bar that happened to be near her office, and yeah, a part of me hoped I'd run into her. I'm not proud of it, but something in me needed to know if she was really working late or just using it as an excuse. So there I was, nursing a beer, trying to keep my mind off Mia. Jake was chatting about something I honestly don't even remember what when I caught a glimpse of a familiar face in the crowd. It was Mia, and right beside her was some guy who I assumed was Sam W. They were sitting at the bar, both leaning in close, talking like they were the only two people in the place. And I mean, there's friendly conversation, and then there's whatever that was. Jake noticed me staring and followed my line of sight. "Isn't that Mia?" he asked, clearly confused. I just nodded, unable to look away. Part of me wanted to storm over and demand answers right there, but another part of me, maybe the rational part, was telling me to just watch and see what happened. They were laughing, way too comfortable for just coworkers. At one point, he reached over and touched her arm, and she didn't pull away. In fact, she kind of leaned into it. My stomach felt heavy, like a lead weight had dropped right into it. I wasn't even angry yet, just numb. It was like watching a movie you'd seen 100 times, already knowing how it would end, but hoping it'd somehow be different this time. Jake put a hand on my shoulder, snapping me out of whatever daze I was in. "Dude, you okay? You want to go over there?" he asked. But I just shook my head. I didn't want to cause a scene. I didn't even know what to say. I mean, What would I even do? Walk up and say, "Hey, remember me, the guy you're supposed to be dating?" It felt so pointless. After they left the bar, I went home, sat on the couch, and just stared at the wall for a while. I kept replaying it in my head, trying to make sense of it. But there wasn't much to figure out. She was with someone else, plain and simple. I'd always thought of cheating as something you'd be able to spot a mile away, like there'd be some big red flag or that gut feeling would hit harder. But it had snuck up on me, hiding behind little excuses and late nights at work. The next day, she came over like nothing happened, acting all normal. I tried to keep my cool, but it was harder than I thought. Every time she smiled or touched my arm, I'd picture her with Sam, laughing at the bar, looking like they were in their own little world. I wanted to confront her right then, but I knew I'd lose it. So I just waited. Over the next couple of weeks, I watched her closely. Every time she went out for work or claimed she was busy, I couldn't help but wonder if she was with him. One night, I finally reached my breaking point. She was staying over, and after she'd fallen asleep, I couldn't resist. I checked her phone. I know it's a low move, but I needed answers. The texts confirmed what I'd been dreading. There were messages back and forth between her and Sam, filled with inside jokes, late night chats, and plans to meet up. And it wasn't just work stuff, it was personal. She'd been sharing things with him that I thought were ours. And there was this one message she sent him that made it all too clear. It was simple, just 2 words, but it felt like a punch in the face. Miss you. I put her phone down and just sat there, trying to figure out what to do. Part of me wanted to wake her up right then, confront her, demand an explanation. But what would that change? I'd seen enough. The trust was gone, shattered. The next morning, I acted like everything was fine. I wanted to confront her on my own terms, not while she was half asleep and could weasel her way out of it. So I waited until she left for work, and then I started planning how I'd handle this. I wasn't going to let her gaslight me or try to explain it away. I needed her to know that I knew, and I needed her to see what she'd done to us. When she came over that evening, I was ready. I sat her down, looked her in the eye, and just said it. I know about Sam. The color drained from her face. She just sat there, staring at me, her mouth half open like she wanted to say something, but couldn't figure out where to start. For a second, I thought maybe she'd deny it or try to play dumb, but after a long pause, she just sighed and dropped her head. It was like I could actually see the guilt on her. "Mia," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "how long has this been going on?" She mumbled something I couldn't quite catch, so I asked her again. This time, she looked up and said, "A few months." She didn't offer any more than that, and honestly, I didn't want to hear the details. I just wanted to understand why. Why throw away everything we had? "Why, Mia?" I asked, probably sounding more defeated than I wanted to. "Why him?" Her eyes shifted away from mine and she started picking at her nails like she was too ashamed to even look at me. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It just, we just started talking and I don't know, one thing led to another. It was stupid. Stupid. She called it stupid, like it was some careless mistake, like she'd forgotten her keys somewhere. I felt this flash of anger. I was getting that stupid excuse while she'd been spending months sneaking around. I wanted to yell, to ask her if all those nights she was working late felt stupid to her too, but I bit my tongue. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of thinking she'd gotten under my skin any more than she already had. I leaned back, trying to process it all. My mind was racing, pulling together all the little moments that hadn't made sense before. Every weird excuse, every time she'd been distant, every look she gave her phone when she thought I wasn't paying attention. It was like my brain was piecing together a puzzle I hadn't realized I was trying to solve, and now I was staring at the finished picture. "So, what now?" I asked, not sure if I wanted to know her answer. She didn't say anything for a long time, just sat there with this lost look on her face. Finally, she said, "I didn't mean for it to get this far. I didn't want to hurt you." I couldn't help but laugh, though there was nothing funny about any of this. "Didn't want to hurt me? You've been seeing this guy for months, Mia. You didn't think that might hurt a little?" She looked down, and for a split second I felt sorry for her. She looked as broken as I felt, like the weight of her own choices was finally hitting her. But then I remembered the messages, the late nights, and the lies she'd been feeding me while she was off with him, and that pity faded fast. I can't do this, I said, standing up. I don't think I can be with someone who's okay with treating me like this. I expected her to argue or maybe even beg me to stay, but she just nodded. I think a part of her knew this was coming and maybe even felt like she deserved it. As much as I hated to admit it, I wasn't the only one hurting here. She'd lost someone too. She just didn't realize it until now. I walked her to the door, and as she stepped out, she turned around one last time. She looked at me, and for a second I thought maybe she'd say something to make it all feel better, to explain everything in a way that might make sense. But she just whispered, "I'm sorry," and then she was gone. That was it. 3 years gone in a matter of minutes. I felt empty, like someone had hollowed me out and left me standing there with nothing. It didn't hit me right away, but over the next few days, the weight of it settled in. The trust I'd had, the future I thought we were building, it was all just gone. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out where I'd gone wrong or if there was something I could have done to change things. But the truth was, it didn't matter. She'd made her choice, and I was left dealing with the fallout. Looking back, maybe I should have seen it sooner, but I was too busy believing in her to see what was right in front of me. I guess the lesson here is trust your gut. And if someone's giving you a reason to doubt them, don't ignore it. It hurts to be wrong about someone you love, but it hurts even more to stay blind to it.